Hello, and it is time for a video that I've been postponing for a bit, I guess, and that is the Did I Accidentally Complete the r/Fantasy bingo board. This is a video I did last year. I don't know whether I'm gonna do it again. This year I might actually look at the bingo board, because now a few times around I was like, I feel like seeing videos that people were doing about it r/Fantasy, and I was like, no, I don't want to know the prompt yet because I'm gonna do this video. And so I missed out on some content for that reason, but also just because maybe I do want to try and see, like, knowing me, probably I won't even try to actively fulfill it, so I might as well look at it ahead of time, right? Now, if I remember correctly, so it is from the 1st of April 2024 to March 31st, 2025. Everything I've read within that time period fits for this challenge. Can't use the same book more than once. So one square is one book. You may not repeat an author, however you may repeat an author from a short story square, so if you used it in a short story collection. If there's going to be a short story collection, I don't actually know whether I read a short story collection. And only one square in total can be a reread. Okay. And then yeah, you can substitute like one square from the 2024 bingo with the 2023 bingo. So let's hope. Let's hope that I can use that. And then of course you have like regular mode and you have hard mode. We're gonna try and fill in hard mode as much as possible, but yeah, let's see about that. So, first row across. So first up we have read the first book in the series, hard mode. The series is more than 3 books long. Now, I already know one definitely that will fit for that, which is A Natural History of Dragons, which is the first book in the Memoirs of Lady Trent series, and that series is like 6 books long or something like that. This is a reread though, so that would be like the first that would be the use of like my one reread square immediately, but that is like the one that I immediately off of the top of my head can think of in terms of like I've read that within that time period. So we have 66 books to work with, 66 books to fill this trilogy, this requirement with. And I'm just trying to see immediately if I can find some like first book in series, but you know, like most of the first book in series, they are really just like books that are part of trilogies and stuff like that, so I don't really think that I'm gonna find anything. Maybe some of those will become longer series, and something like, for example, the Tawny Man trilogy. I started the first book in a trilogy and it's part of a bigger series that is a ton, but then I would only be able to count, I think, like Assassin's Apprentice as the first of that bigger series. So I do think that is probably going to end up being the case of me only being able to count A Natural History of Dragons or King's Dark Tidings, because I also reread King's Dark Tidings, but so this is also an issue because that is also a reread, so it's gonna be either one of those probably. I don't actually think that I have anything else that will count. So what potentially could count, but I will have to check that afterwards, when because if I now like click on this, then I will lose my filters, is if this was the first time that I read Guilds from the Plated Prisoner series, then that one could count. But I also kind of see that that might be a reread. Witch Hat Atelier Volume... Ooh, this is the one. Witch Hat Atelier Volume 1. So this is a manga series in which we're following a new witch. Like in the first volume, basically they find out that they have magical powers and they are taken under the wing of some sort of a magician. So Witch Hat Atelier Volume 1 would be a first book in the series and is not a reread. So I'm gonna count that one unless later on within this video I need it for something else. Because, for example, I also read Throne of Glass, but I DNF'd it, so I don't think that I could count that, for example. And yeah, the rest is all... Because I've counted everything in the Plated Prisoner series, so I could potentially count that as well. But I'll have to look into that one a little bit closer to be sure. And for the other first ones in the series, I don't know how long the series are going to be. So yeah, I wouldn't count any of those, I think. So let's just keep it at Witch Hat Atelier Volume 1 for the time being. Second one, alliterative title. Read a book where multiple words in the title begin with the same letter. For example, Legends and Lattes, A Storm of Swords, Children of Blood and Bone, Hard Mode. The title has 3 words or more that start with the same letter. 3 or more. So we already have Inkblot Sister Scribe, so the final 2 words have that alliteration. This will count. Yeah, this is probably what I'm going to count here, unless I need it later on, which is Dallargot Dream Department Store by Mai Lee. This is a cozy fantasy, like healing fiction, that type of thing, about a department store of dreams. So when you sleep, you go to this department store to find like the perfect dream. 3. Under the surface. Read a book where an important setting is either underground or underwater. Hard mode. At least half the book takes place underground or underwater. I mean, I can think of one with an underground setting, but I'm not entirely sure we could say that that is half the book. Probably not. And that would be The Gods Below. Yeah, I of course had Fathom Folk, but I DNF'd that, so I don't think I can count that. No, it's gonna have to be The Gods Below, because I didn't read anything else, so I don't think this is hard mode. I don't think it takes place underground that much. I would have to maybe look at a recap for that, or look at, hope that somebody else put it in, but I don't even know how I'm gonna find that out then, you know, because there is this thing about an expedition underground. Does that happen already within this page count? Maybe I have to ask it somewhere, I don't know. 4th prompt, criminals. Read a book in which the main character is a criminal. This could be a thief, assassin, someone who commits mail fraud, etc. etc. Hard mode features a heist. So we could definitely argue that Kingsar Tiding has hits this prompt, so that would be an assassin. Who's also leader of the Thieves Guild. In that case I could only count like the latest book, because that's the only one that isn't a reread, but there is no heist in that one. Like, I re-listened to all of those back to back, and I gotta say that with the final book I don't fully remember the particulars of it anymore. I remember what I didn't like as much about it as the others, but like in terms of what actually happens as plot lines throughout it, like a heist, Jesus. I like heists, but you can call The Sky on Fire a heist story, right? And that is a character who was committed, found guilty of a crime. So could we consider that? I would like to consider that. I will ask that to people who have read this book. Because I know people who've read this book. See, this is also my issue with this, doing this behind, like afterwards, because my memory sucks. I don't remember for some of these. Silverblood Promise, that guy, could we really consider him a criminal? Probably not, right? Like, he was expelled, but that's not the same as being a criminal, of course. Yeah, I'm gonna assume that I'm actually going to use... What was it again that I was going to use for this? Jesus! This is how good my memory is, that I cannot even remember it 5 seconds after. Sky on Fire, right. Labyrinth's Hearts, technically speaking, also has criminals. But is it a heist? No, right? I need to change my battery. Where is my list of questions? So, final one for the first row. Dreams. Read a book where characters experience dreams, magical or otherwise. Hard mode. The dream is not mystical or unusual, just a normal dream or nightmare. Okay, so this is why you should just do this in the moment itself, because these are the types of questions that honestly you cannot be expected to just remember, right? Whether somebody had a dream. Like, can I just zoom in a little bit more still? So I guess we're now trying to remember if somebody has a dream in these things, like, like honest to God, how am I going to remember that? A dream. I don't know. And the annoying thing about that is that I know that Delegate Dream Department, of course, is with dreams, but I need that book already for the hard mode. Yeah. What I can also always still do, of course, is look at other people's, like look at the Storygraph challenge and see what people have placed there, in case I cannot remember myself whether anything of this nature had a dream in it. Because seriously, I'm not entirely sure how am I supposed to remember whether these characters had a dream. I guess Yumi and the Nightmare Painter could definitely count as something to do with dreams and nightmares, I guess. So I guess that is going to be my temporary fit in there, and then in that case I also think we cannot count it for hard mode. But I might look at that in terms of looking at the Storygraph challenge to see if I can find something better to count for it. But honestly, I have zero memory, so I cannot come up with this myself anymore. Second row. Entitled Animals. Read a book that has an animal in the title. The animal in the title does not have to appear in the story. Great. Hard mode. The animal that in the title is a fantasy or sci-fi creature. I don't think so. Right. I'll already be happy if I have one with an animal in. Oh, I do. Oh, I do have Tea Dragon Society. And that's a first time read, so most likely that'll be enough, right? I'll kind of quickly scroll through it to kind of see if... I also have the Phoenix Keeper potentially for this. Oh, nice, I have more than I thought. Baby Dragon Cafe. So I have a few in case I need to switch around, and basically in terms of Tea Dragon I read all 3 of them. But yeah, you're not supposed to count more from the same author, so in that case it wouldn't be the case of, you know, like using them for multiple prompts. And I do actually have more animals. I have the Fox Maidens, the Dead Cat Tail Society, but of course those are not hard mode, so I won't use them. But I had more than I thought I did. Between Dragons and Their Wrath, another dragon one. To Shape a Dragon's Wrath. To Shape a Dragon's Breath. So I think for the time being, we are going to use this as Tea Dragon Society. I'll just put Tea Dragon Society. I think that one is probably the one most easy to, less likely to need it for anything else. Bards. Read a book in which the primary protagonist is a bard, musician, poet, or storyteller. Hard mode, the character is explicitly called a bard. Definitely don't have a book with a bard as the main character. Do I even have something like a musician or something like that? Like the Plated Prisoner series, she is like entertaining with a harp in the beginning. That's like her main purpose. It's quite a stretch, I feel like, but why not? I don't even remember anything about the Sun in the Void, so I wouldn't even be able to say. You know what totally random thing I would have had? A blacksmith. Watch that be the word for the 2025 bingo, you know? So yeah, I'm going to go for something from the Plated Prisoner series. I have to check which one, whether I've read them all for the first time in this time period or not, but I definitely read one of them for the first time during this time period, so one will definitely count. Prologues and epilogues. Read a book that has either a prologue or an epilogue. Hard mode, the book must have both. That I would have to look at. So I'm coming back upon that one later. Self-published or indie publisher. Self-published or published through an indie publisher. If a formerly self-published book has been picked up by a publisher, it only counts for this challenge if you read it when it was still only self-published. Hard mode self-published and has fewer than 100 ratings on Goodreads. Or an indie publisher that has done an AMA with r/fantasy. So, well, we have Blood over Brighthaven. Technically speaking, it was still only self-published when I read it because the traditionally published version hadn't been published yet. It was there, it was announced, like I think Blood over Brighthaven was not available as a self-published one for a very long time. I bought it immediately because of my love for Sword of Kaigen, so I had the self-published edition from the beginning, but I don't think that one was around for a while, but like I think it was picked up like almost immediately. But I have read it in the self-published edition, and I did read it before the like traditionally published edition came out. So this does not count for the 100 ratings or less, but it might count for this other thing, in which case I might have hard mode. Oh, romantasy. Read a book that features romance as a main plot. This must be speculative in nature but does not have to be fantasy. Hard mode, the main character is LGBTQIA+. Well, I can think of, so the entire Play the Prisoner series, but I'm already using that for something, right? Yes, I'm using that for that musician thingy. In that case we have Bloodguard, and the Starlight Air would probably count as romantasy. And I have no recollection of whether these characters are LGBTQIA+, probably not, so I'll just count it as easy mode. And let us go for Bloodguard. Third row, Dark Academia. Read a book that fits the Dark Academia aesthetic. This includes school and university, secret societies and dark secrets. Does not have to be fantasy, but must be speculative. Hard book, the school itself is entirely mundane. I don't even think I have a school book. Like Inkblot Sister Scribe to some extent has that, it's like a secret library. You have the magic school in the Will of the Many, and it does have a secret society, so technically speaking, I guess we can count it. Definitely not hard mode because it's not a mundane school. It is probably going to have to become my answer, right? Looking at all of this, none of this has even have like a magical school. Yeah, Between Dragons and Their Wrath, does that have a school in it? I don't remember, I don't think so. And so of course you have Blood over Brighthaven, which I've just counted, so I'm not gonna use. Unless maybe these João F. Silva's books are self-published. Probably need to look into that, because then I could use those. To Shape a Dragon's Breath has magic school in it, but that's even further away from Dark Academia in my opinion than the Will of the Many would be, which to be fair really isn't Dark Academia, but at least we can say that it has like the the secret societies in a school setting type of thing. Yeah, it's just gonna have to be those. Multi-POV, read a book with at least 3 points of view. Hard mode, at least 5 points of view characters. So my initial immediate answer to that was Between Dragons and Their Wrath, but I'm pretty sure it just has 3, it doesn't have 5. Principle of Moments will not get to the 5, I don't think so either. Ending Fire has probably 4 or so at this point in time. The Jen Williams series definitely had 3. Mistress of Lies had 3, I think. Kings Are Tidings occasionally switches, but probably not enough to have like 5 perspectives. The Full Moon Coffee Shop, I mean, I don't know whether we really have... Are they really seen as POVs, or is it like just omniscient narrator in there? Because there we follow multiple people, so it might get to the 5. The Smokesmith series has a few perspectives, but probably also not 5. No, I don't think we're gonna get to 5, so we're gonna keep to my original answer, which is between Dragons and Their Wrath, which has 3 perspectives. 13. Published in 2024. A book published for the first time in 2024. No reprints or new editions. First translations into your language of choice are allowed. Hard mode is also the author's first published novel. First published novel in 2024. So let's see for which it says 2024 next to it. So Sky on Fire I'm already using for something. So for Rob J. Hayes, I have a few books that could count. Bloodguard I can look at, because otherwise I can change that out with the Starlight Air to see which one was like, whether one of those two potentially is like a first publication. I have a few that were published in 2024, but for the most of those I know that they're not the debut of that author. Phoenix Keeper, maybe? Van Vogue? But yeah, I didn't finish it, so. Where is this Starlight Air? Because, yeah, I know it's from 2025, so. Damn it. Yeah, Between Dragons and Their Wrath definitely isn't the first publication neither. So I'll have to look at Bloodguard, because if that's the first, I'll have to look at Bloodguard and The Phoenix Keeper and Mistress of Lies and The Silver Blood Promise. That might be a first publication. 14. Character with a disability. We'll read a book in which an important character has a physical or mental disability. Hard mode. A main character has a physical or mental disability. Did I read anything like that this year? My brain is not immediately pushing something at me, which isn't always saying something, of course. To be fair, I'm really just scrolling and not even thinking. I actually don't think so. Currently reading one, but I don't think so. I don't think I have one for last year. No, and that's really not the one that I wanted to be like replacing, you know. Like I love reading books with characters with disability. But I didn't have one. I don't think so last year. Published in the 1990s. Read a book that was published in the 1990s. Hard mode, the author or one of the author has also published something in the last 5 years. Let's see, that should be relatively easy to find at least the first section of that. The hard mode part might not be. Reading too much current fantasy, clearly. But please, Robin Hobb, come to the rescue. Oh, I also just realized that when I said A Natural History of Dragons earlier, yeah, but I chose something else in the end, right? Because actually that's not something I read this year, like during this time period apparently. I have something for the 19th century. Oh my god, none of the Robin Hobbs that I read were from, I only read one Robin Hobb or what? Because I only saw one appear. And that one, annoyingly enough, is from 2001. Oh my god, we are failing r/fantasy because I cannot replace more than one. So it's already a fail. 4th row across. Orcs, trolls and goblins. Oh my. Read a book featuring orcs, trolls or goblins. Hard mode as a main character. Yeah, I mean that's also a fail. I don't have any orcs, trolls or goblins in my books randomly. So yeah, last year it was easier to randomly get r/fantasy bingo apparently, because this one we ain't getting. I don't even need to look through that list to know that I didn't have any. 17, space opera. Okay, I also should look at sci-fi then, I guess. I haven't looked at what I read for sci-fi. I read less sci-fi, so it won't have been much. Read a sci-fi book that features a large cast of characters and has a focus on social dynamics which may be political or personal in nature. Set primarily in space or on spaceships. Hard mode, written by an author of marginalized gender identity. I probably reread a murder bot during that time period, but that will have to be confirmed. But yeah, I'll put it into that bingo in case it is the case. Then, author of color. Read a book by an author of color. Hard mode must be a debut novel published in the last 5 years. When did I read that of the author? Because that was in the sci-fi section, so I don't see that currently in the view I have here of all the books that I read. An author of color is also an Asian author, right? Because I do have a few of those. Oh, and I have an indigenous author into Shape a Dragon's Breath. What was the hard mode? Must be a debut novel published in the last 5 years. I do actually think that that is a debut and it was published in 2023, but I'll have to check that, whether it is actually hard mode or not. Then I have other stuff, like The Sun and the Void is by an author of color. So all of those healing fictions are by Asian authors, so all of those also count. Principle of Moments is by a black author. And I believe that that is probably a debut, but I might have counted it for the book for 2024. So Blood Over Bright Haven, but I'm using it already. Temple Alley Summer by an Asian author, Chloe Gong, Violet Stings, but that's definitely not a debut because it's a sequel. Fox Maidens, and it's also published in 2024, might be a debut, don't know. The Unbroken, I think, is also by a black author from 2021, so it's just within that 5-year time period. That gets Tail Assassins, but that's not a debut. Oleander Sword I DNF'd. Fathom Folk I DNF'd. Fae Bounds I've read, but it's definitely not a debut. And then rereading The Final Strife. I guess the final book in that, The Ending Fire, was a first read, but definitely not a debut. Baby Dragon Cafe by A.T. Qureshi might be a debut. Yeah, those are the ones from which I can like automatically say like yes, they are written by people of color. Yeah, I think that those are the people of color. It'll show up there, whatever I end up choosing for this. This is becoming more and more of a let future me figure this out type of deal, I guess. Survival. Read a book in which the primary goal of the characters and story focuses on survival. Surviving an apocalypse, surviving a war, surviving high school, hard mode. No super viruses or pandemics. I guess my choice here is going to be Will of the Many, because the character is trying to hide his identity, and so if people were to find out who he really is, he wouldn't survive the book. 20. Judge a book by its cover. Choose because you like its cover. Hard mode. Pick the book based only on the information available on the cover. No reading the blurb. Yeah, okay, so this just assumes that you haven't read the book, but I'm going to go for Silverblood Promise here, because with Silverblood Promise, the reason that I picked this book up is the cover. Like, I love the cover. Like, even if I hadn't read the back of that book, the cover is what would have gotten me. And actually, I read it despite the description, because the description already points out, like, indicates that it might be somewhat of a murder mystery, which I hate. And I read it despite that, and I loved it in spite of that, because the murder mystery in it is just like a trigger. It's not really the whole point of the book. So that's my choice here. 5th row across, which I think is the final row. Set in a small town. The primary setting is a small town. Hard mode. The small town can be real or fictional, but the broader setting must be our real world and not a secondary world. Your Blood, My Bones by Kelly Andrew. This takes place in a small town. Whether the small town is real or not, I don't know. We actually also don't really get to see the small town. We just are in an isolated living. Like, it's a girl returning to the house that she grew up in after her father passes away, and so the house now becomes her property. But it has like a cult vibe going on in any case. So it's a small town setting, and it is our real world. 22. 5 SFF short stories. Any 5 short stories or novelettes, hard mode, read an entire speculative anthology or collection. So yeah, as indicated, I didn't do that. Which is stupid actually, because this is in every r/fantasy bingo board, so I could have known that was going to happen. But yeah, I don't have anything that counts for that. Nothing. 23. Eldritch creatures. Read a book featuring a being that is uncanny, unearthly, and weird. This can be a god or a monster from another plane or realm and is usually beyond mortal understanding. Hard mode, the book is not related to the Cthulhu witches. Well, Your Blood, My Bone also counts for that. So maybe I need to find another small town setting one to use for the small town setting and use Your Blood, My Bone for this, because do I have any other eldritch monsters? I mean, I'd never heard of this way of talking about something until recently. But I don't think I have anything else that's like really like set in our real world. So that's already a reason to say that Your Blood, My Bone is the only thing that I'm gonna have here. Because for example, like the Phoenix Keeper, it's taking place in a zoo. No small town has a zoo, you know, like it has to be already a bigger town there. Baby Dragon Cafe does feel like a small town, but it's definitely not our world, because there are dragons in there. Maybe The Girl from the Sea, for example, could be said as being like a small town. Temple Alley Summer, I don't actually know where that took place. No, and no other eldritch monsters neither, so another one that we are not managing. Reference materials. Read a book that features additional materials such as a map, footnotes, glossary, translation guides, dramatis persona, etc. Hard mode. Book contains at least 2 types of additional materials. So maps, footnotes, glossaries, translation guides, dramatis personae. Why? Why do you do this to me? Yeah, that I'll have to look at. And then the one that I also should have known was going to be in there and that I also have to look at is book club or read along book. Any past or active r/fantasy book club counts, as well as past or active r/fantasy read alongs. So I have to check the list, because I think that already was horrible last year. Maybe that's the one that I replaced last year. But so yeah, I'm gonna have to come back to you once I've like made the visual for this and seen how much I've got for this, how much I don't have. Yeah, I don't think it will have been a great success. I think it will have been quite a failure at this point in time. Alright guys, I have basically just been re-looking at this whole thing, and I think that I am going to be showing you the final board now, and I've done quite some reshuffles, so let's just kind of go over them. My apologies that I'm not going to be talking about any of these books and what they are, but you know, like, ask me about them in the comments in case you're really interested. So the ones that are in black and white are the ones for which I didn't manage to do hard mode. The ones that are in color are the ones for which I did. There are a few that I feel are quite stretched out, but here we go. So first up we have Witch Hat Atelier Volume 1 for first book in the series, hard mode, because the series is longer than 3 books. Delegate Dream Department Store stays in for a book that has like the alliteration, and actually that should not be in black and white, because that one is, so in your version it will not be in black and white, but so that one is more than 2 words that have the alliteration. Then we have The Gods Below for a book that is set underground. I do technically think it probably also can count for hard mode, but whenever there was a doubt, I decided to go for more strict on myself. Then we have The Sky on Fire as a book with a criminal protagonist that is also a heist, so hard mode. Blood Over Bright Haven, in the end I decided to put in as a book with a dream in it. I don't remember the dream, but considering the story and my recollection of the story, I don't see it being a magical dream, so I think it should just be a mundane dream. So I did give myself hard mode there. Then we have Tea Dragon Society, so it was about animal name in the title, and then hard mode was a mythical animal, so dragons are mythical animals. Then we have the Bard prompt for which I stretch out to include Guild from the Plated Prisoner series by Raven Kennedy. The protagonist is seen playing the harp in both the first book and the second book, so I'm counting it as a magician, but it's definitely not as a musician, but it's definitely not hard mode. Next up we have a book with a prologue or an epilogue, hard mode both, and that is Herald by Rob J. Hayes, right? Then we have Ruins of Smoke by João F. Silva, counting for the self-published book. Now, I ended up putting this one instead of Blood of a Bright Haven because it is way less popular. And so the other hard modes thing was like, if there's an Ask Me Anything sort of thing with the publisher, then it also counts. But, you know, these are self-published, so there is no publisher. And I think, technically speaking, the moment in which I was reading this, it probably counted for hard mode, because at this point in time, this book has 125 ratings. I've definitely read it months ago, more than half a year ago probably, so probably it had less than 100 ratings when I read it, but I will not give myself the benefit of the doubt. I'm keeping it in as like regular mode. Then we have a romantasy. Hard mode would have been an LGBTQIA plus protagonist, but that's not the case, so the Starlight Heir is counting there. Then another one that I really stretched is the Dark Academia one, for which I put in The Will of the Many. It is a book with a magic school setting which has secret societies, but honestly this is not what I understand to be Dark Academia, so if it weren't for that explanation having been given, I would not have counted it for this. But yeah, hey, we're counting it. Then we've got Between Dragons and Their Wrath, which is counting for a multi-POV book, but it only has 3 POVs as far as I'm aware, but definitely probably not the 5 that was needed for hard mode here. Then we have Mistress of Lies, which is going in for, good question, it's going in for a book published in 2024, for which hard mode was that it was also like a debut, which counts for this book. Then we have Death of the Author, which is a book with a disabled protagonist, and I think it also had, what was the hard mode for that one? The protagonist had to be disabled. So I didn't think I had one because I was looking at the fantasy section when I went over this with you guys, but in the sci-fi section I had Death of the Author, which I did think about when I was talking about like the POV author. Then Death of the Author was the first book that came to mind, but Death of the Author is also about a disabled black protagonist, so that one definitely counts for that prompt. Then for the next prompt, which originally was the published in the 90s prompt, I swapped that one out with a prompt from last year's bingo. So I chose the magical creatures or mythical creature or whatever prompt, where hard mode was that it wasn't a dragon, and so I chose to put the Phoenix Keeper in there. Then unfortunately we get to the prompt that I did not complete. So Orcs, Trolls and Goblins, oh my, I did not complete, so the entire bingo, I cannot complete the entire bingo board. I can only substitute one, which I already did for the published in the 90s prompt. There is one book that I read that was published in the 90s, but I didn't fully read it. I DNF'd it, so I couldn't count it. So yeah, Orcs, Trolls and Goblins, oh my. If I had finished my reread of Harry Potter in the month of March, but I didn't even start it, I started in April, then I could have had a book to count here, so yeah. But yeah, we don't have one counting here, so we didn't complete it, but I did, while watching somebody else's video, realize that indeed, technically speaking, r/fantasy is completed if you can count a bingo, and I can count many bingos. So next up we had a space opera, for which I counted A Memory Called Empire by Arcady Martin, hard mode being from a marginalized the author being from a marginalized identity, being like woman, queer, or anything like that, person of color. This is a lesbian female author, so counting. Then we have the person of color prompt, for which the hard mode was that it is a debut published in the last 5 years or something like that. To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Monokil Black Goose counts for that. This is an indigenous author. And then we come to survival. So a book featured around survival. For that I chose Bloodguard by C.C. Robson. in the previous clips I still had this in for the romantasy category, but this is actually a book that is about gladiators, or like the male interest here is entering in some sort of like gladiatorial games. I had mentioned The Will of the Many, but as we've seen I had already put The Will of the Many somewhere else, so I couldn't put Will of the Many here, and so that's why we had to shift around with the romantasy a little bit. Then we have the book that I chose because of the cover. For this I ended up choosing Silverblood Promise. Silverblood Promise was also something that could counter something else, and I no longer am entirely sure about what it was. I think probably the prologue and epilogue prompt or something like that. When I originally came across it I was like, I want to count Silverblood Promise, but Silverblood Promise really is the only book for which I can really say that that was a total cover buy. I mean, I did buy it. It was definitely the cover is what sold me on this book. The cover is what made me go, I want to read this book, even if at the end it turns out that I don't like this one at all. But that cover is just like, to die for. Next up we have books set in a small town, for which originally I had put Your Blood, My Bones. In the end I decided that when I looked at the sci-fi section, I had Kindred by Octavia Butler in there, and while it starts, I think, in like a big city in California, when we move back in time, we are taking place, like the story is taking place in a plantation, which for me sounds very small town, so I chose to put it in there. And then we have another one of these stretch goals. So I feel like I've put like 3 things in a in quite a stretched place, like they don't technically belong there, or they're really far-fetched. And this one definitely is as well. This is Will Prescribe You a Cat by Suo Ishida, which I'm putting in here for 5 short stories. This is healing fiction. It is written in 5 parts. In each part we are introduced to new people. We are following new people who end up coming across this doctor who prescribes them a cat. So it is to be read as 5 different short stories about people dealing with cats and finding healing through their interactions with these cats. So I feel like it counts, because it's not like, you know, it's not a traditional book where you have a story that progresses from the beginning of the book until the end of the book. It is 5 different stories that just have one overlapping thing that they have in common with one another, but that is also the case for short story collections, where there will most often be a general theme or a same author. So I'm counting it. I think that I can allow myself this stretch. Next up we have The Erdrich Monster, for which I chose Your Blood, My Bones by Kelly Andrews. And then we have The Labyrinth's Heart by M.A. Carrick in for a book with multiple reference material. So there are maps in here, there is a glossary in here, a dramatis persona. I think every single reference thing you can have is in here, as well as a prologue and an epilogue, but of course I was already counting something else for that. And then the final prompt is to read a book from an r/fantasy book club, and for that I'm choosing The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. So with that I've finished most of the prompts. There's just one prompt that I couldn't fit in, but as indicated earlier, I do think that for 2025 I am going to be looking at the boards ahead of time. A video about that will probably come out in like July, August. I might want to do sort of like a scheduling of like, these are books that I'm considering for these prompts, asking for recommendations maybe for a few others, and probably I'll do a few vlogs as well, in which I'm maybe tackling like 2 or 3 of these prompts at a time, because that would be fun. But I just think that, yeah, with this, I don't like the fact that I've had to stretch certain prompts in order to count them. I would like to read an actual Dark Academia to fill the Dark Academia prompt, for example, but I don't like Dark Academia all that much, meaning that I'm not going to automatically fill this prompt like spontaneously, you know, like it's just not something that I reach for. And so yes, if I know that there's a prompt for Dark Academia, then I will read a dark academia that's like higher on my radar or something that I want to give a go, but I'm not just gonna automatically reach for a dark academia, for example, and I'm assuming that dark academia is not gonna be on the radar for next year, for example, but like there's gonna be some sort of a specific prompt on there that I'm gonna have to like keep an eye out for and like intentionally put into the year to make sure that I get it. I think like last year I got away with something very specific, probably because of either just damn luck or or you know, like being able to swap one out where I almost got there, I guess. Like if it hadn't been for that orcs one, which is really specific, then maybe I would have gotten there. But you know, like I just want to fit the prompts better and you know, like know exactly how they're counting in the moment that I'm talking about them counting. Because for Blood over Bright Haven, for example, I am counting it because I saw that people were counting it for the dream prompt, but I don't actually remember the dream that is in Blood over Bright Haven, but clearly there is one, or there should be one, because people are saying that there is one, so I'm counting it for that, but I don't actually remember that. Whereas if I read books knowing what the prompts for r/fantasy bingo is, then while reading a book I might be like, oh hey, there's a dream here, I can count this for r/fantasy. So yeah, that is going to be how I'm tackling it in 2025. I will actually plan it out and not just see if I automatically get there. But so yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I think it's gonna be pure chaos. I'm gonna call it chaos and order, I guess, the two parts of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know how you feel about what I did. Do you feel like I stretched these prompts a little bit too far? And yeah, see you guys for a future video. Bye!